my mother's absence on a business trip, when I was just a young child, maybe 17, marked the beginning of everything. At least I believed that our family had always been tight, John. My father was the cool parent. He never asked too many questions. He was not severe, and he never failed to make me laugh. Before that summer, when everything changed, I never felt uneasy around him. Mum left for at Woo. We tripped to Europe for work, and as usual, Dad and I had the house to ourselves. We've travelled a lot because Mom works. But this time there was tension between us that I hadn't noticed before and wasn't sure how to feel. Dad had always been loving, but this time something had changed in the way he spoke to me and looked at me. I couldn't quite pinpoint it, but he was showing me too much kindness and complimenting me on aspects he had never experienced before. You're growing up. Rachel, one evening, when we were watching a movie in the living room, he remarked, "You remind me so much of your mother." The way Dad said it stuck with me, even though I lofted it off and assumed it was simply a father-daughter moment. I became aware of small details as the days passed. He would either give me praises that made me stomach turn, or he would walk right by me with his hand resting on my shoulder for a little longer than it should have, although there was a subtle sense that something wasn't quite right. I made an effort to ignore it, since that was my father. He couldn't have meant anything. Could he? About a week after Mom's departure, Dad was in the kitchen preparing supper when I returned home from a friend's house one evening. He gave me a smile, but there was an odd expression in his eyes that I couldn't quite identify. As I moved to assist with setting the table, his hand touched mine. It was a small gesture. I experienced a surge of electricity coursing through my body. I felt a knot rise in my throat and hurriedly withdrew. I was unable to look at him. "Are you all right, Rachel?" His voice was quiet as he requested. "Yes, I'm all right." I avoided making eye contact as I murmured. The stillness between us was oppressive. When we sat down to dine, I was unsure of how to articulate my feelings, yet I felt compelled to express them. We normally watched TV together after supper, but a day seemed different since he sat closer to me than usual, his knee grazing mine and his arms slackly slung across the back of the couch. My heart began to race and my chest tightened, but I wasn't sure if it was fear or something else I didn't want to tell myself. The show we were watching showcased a scene where the characters engaged in a complex relationship, and it resonated deeply with me. I could feel the tension building not just on the screen, but between us. I looked at my dad, and for a moment our eyes met. The look he gave me was not fatherly. Rather, it was an entirely different one that simultaneously filled me with fear and intrigue. I quickly got up, needing to get away from the intensity of the moment. "I'm going to bed," I said. "I'm going to bed." Without waiting for a response, I could feel his eyes on me as I left the room. And as I lay in bed that night, I couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd looked at me. Our relationship experienced a sudden shift, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to handle the implications. The following few days were a blur as I tossed and turned, trying to tell myself that I was over-analyzing or hallucinating things, but I knew deep down that something had changed. I attempted to avoid spending too much time alone with Dad by making up reasons to be locked in my room or out of the house, but I was unable to change the way he treated me or looked at me. It was as though an imperceptible boundary separated us, and we were both perilously near after crossing it. Things culminated one evening. Dad entered the kitchen as I was getting a snack. The home was silent, and it was late. My pulse raced at the surprise of seeing him. Something I hadn't anticipated. He leaned on the counter and said I couldn't sleep. Yes, I sighed, sensing the old tension coming back. He approached me and stood uncomfortably near, Staring into my eyes, my head begged me to get away and put some distance between us, but my feet were stuck in place as I felt my pulse. "Quicken, you know I care about you, right?" he asked, barely audible above a whisper. Rachel, I didn't trust my voice, so I just nodded. He leaned out and lightly brushed a lock of hair behind my ear. My stomach flipped at the tenderness and intimacy of the gesture. This was incorrect, even though I knew it was wrong. I was immobile. The ringing of the doorbell interrupted what he was about to say. The interruption stunned us both, and we both jumped. With my heart racing, I took a swift step back. I hurried to the door, thankful for the diversion, and whispered, "Trembling, I'll grab it." I was surprised to see my mother standing there with her suitcase in hand. When I opened the door, she wasn't expected to return for a few more days, so I thought I'd surprise you both. She smiled, obviously oblivious to the tension that had been building in the house during her absence, my mind racing with relief and confusion, forced a smile and moved aside to give her space. Had she just unknowingly saved me from something? Or was I just imagining the whole thing as Mom walked inside? She greeted me, who seemed just as flustered as I was. They exchanged pleasantries, but I could see it in his eyes. The same tension that had been growing between us was still there, just beneath the surface, and now with Mom back, it was like a ticking time bomb waiting to explode, but I wasn't ready for what would happen next. The days that followed Mom's unexpected return were filled with tension. I experienced a sense of anxiety as I attempted to maintain a normal demeanor. Despite the turmoil within me, I could see it in Dad's eyes. He was doing the same. He avoided me and kept his distance, but that tension, that unspoken thing between us was still there, lingering like a storm cloud waiting to break. Of course, she was happy to be home and didn't seem to notice how strange things had become. Or maybe she did, but she was too distracted by work to pay attention. I was grateful she was back. "Hello, Ra," he added in a timid tone. Kenry talked. My heart was pounding. I didn't want to talk to him or be alone myself, but I also couldn't stay away from him indefinitely. I slightly opened the door to get a glimpse of his face. He appeared anxious, as though he was unsure of how to respond to my question. I could hardly hold my voice. He simply rubbed the back of his neck and moaned. "We've been acting strangely recently, and I don't want it to continue. I love you, and I'm your father. I don't want you to feel awkward in my presence, unsure of what to say." I just gazed at him. The part of me that wanted to believe him was that I had imagined him caressing and staring at me, but I knew better. He had sensed it. I had sensed it, and we were both acting as though it didn't exist. "I'm all right," headed, stepping closer. "I don't want you to feel like you can't talk to me. If something's bothering you, you can tell me." I lied, in the hopes it would be sufficient to terminate the conversation. But it wasn't Rachel. I tightened my throat and swallowed hard, but it was too much. I stood back and shook my head. "But I'm okay, let's forget about it, Dad." He started to say something, but before he could finish, the front door slammed open and Mum's voice filled the house. "I'm back," she said, her footsteps heavy-ass. He entered the kitchen. Relief filled me, and I slipped past Dad and hurried downstairs, thankful for the interruption. More he sighed behind me, but he didn't follow. Over the course of the following few days, everything returned to normal. Normal, or as normal as they could be, given the situation about a week after Mom's return. One evening after dinner, Rachel pulled me aside and said in a soft but serious voice, "I've noticed you've been acting strange lately. Is everything okay?" I tried my best to avoid being alone with Dad, and whenever she was around we pretended everything was fine, but I knew it wasn't over. She had obviously seen it, which made my heart sink. Why wouldn't she? I had been trying to stay away from Dad, talking to him only when absolutely necessary, and when I did, I could hardly look at him. But what message did I intend to convey? Did I mention that my father, her spouse, had been acting in a way that left me feeling uneasy and perplexed. I forced again and responded, "I'm fine, Mum. I suppose it's just school-rated stress." She looked at me for a while, her eyes narrowing as if she didn't believe me. But fortunately, she didn't ask any more questions. She nodded and smiled reassuringly at me. "All right, just know that you may talk to me about anything that's upsetting you if it was a Saturday," and Mum had gone out with some friends for the evening, leaving Dad and me alone. Once more, I could feel the tension building as soon as she left, so I tried to stay in my room, but after a few hours I got hungry and went downstairs to grab a snack. I nodded, even though I knew I wouldn't be able to endure this for a while. Things went on like this with Sil. Tension, unsaid words, and me trying to convince myself that it was all in my head. When my dad saw me, he turned off the TV in the living room and got up. My heart raced, feeling the familiar uneasiness creep in and a tightness in my throat. "Hey, Ra," he said, in a casual tone, yet his words carried a chilling undertone. I muttered, avoiding eye contact, as I picked up a bag of chips from the pantry and was ready to go back upstairs when he spoke again, this time in a quieter tone. "Could we please talk, Rachel? I don't like the way things have been between us." I froze with my back to him, not wanting to chat or spend time alone with him, but I had no option but to turn around and face him. My stomach twisted in knots as he approached me. Standing too close, his eyes searching mine, I could feel my breath quickening and my pulse racing. He said softly, "Maybe we need to clear there." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't know what you're talking about," but for a moment I thought he was going to say something else that would finally cross that invisible line between us. Then, as if by some miracle, the doorbell rang and I jumped quickly, pulling away from him. My heart was pounding, so hard that I thought it might burst out of my chest. "I'll get it," I said, rushing to the door. And when I opened it, I was shocked to see Mom standing there again, her face pale and her eyes wide with worry. She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she glanced beyond me and into the home, looking about the room as though she was looking for something or someone. Then in a shaky voice she said, "I need to talk to your father." And suddenly I understood. I was certain that she had discovered the solution, or at least that she had recognized a problem with a sinking heart. I moved aside to allow her entry into the house. Everything changed as she passed me, and I looked at Dad, who was standing still in the center of the living room with a pale face. At last that attention had broken. I wasn't sure whether my mum's knowledge was sufficient to split our family apart, but it seemed like we were perched on a precipice, about to plummet.